We're picking up where we left off in the Beatitudes last week. And the first one we're going to look at this week is what we are more familiar with, I think, is blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Which, to me always sounded like, oh, gee, you're having visions and hallucinating here, and you think you're seeing God or something. Oh, excuse me. But he changes some of the wording here and some of the ideas a little bit. And his first very basic one is simply, blessed are the consistent in heart, which I think probably makes more sense than the pure in heart. When we start talking about purity in religious sense, sometimes we don't feel like we're getting there real well. So I like the fact that he does consistent in heart. That is, if you're functioning out of a love consciousness, out of compassion, they shall contemplate the one. But then, as Neil is prone to do, he comes up with yet another one. Well, he actually comes up with 5 here on this one for this week. But the next one he does gets much more involved. And it says, happy are those whose passion is electrified by deep, abiding purpose. They shall regard the power that moves and shows itself in all things. Yeah, that was my reaction, Anne, when the first time I read that. It's like, okay, so what exactly is he saying here? Just the words and hearing them appeals to me, but I need to go back and contemplate this a little bit more. Healthy are those whose passion is electrified by deep, abiding purpose. That's our first part of this. This is an interpretation of the pure in heart. And then the second part says, they shall regard the power that moves and shows itself in all things. Again, that's still this idea of thinking, reflecting, contemplating God, the one, whatever terminology you want to use here, but it's, it's certainly a very different approach to that concept than just saying, blessed are the consistent in heart, they shall contemplate the one. So where our passion is electrified by deep, abiding purpose. And I really like that concept because I think it really calls us to something more, something deeper than just this idea of pure in heart, or even consistent in heart. It's saying that there's an energy, there's a force that is active and working within us when we make this connection, when we attune ourselves and our energy and our insights to what he calls the deep abiding purpose, or what he calls the consistent in heart. What are we doing? Where are we going with this? Then we get to regard the power, to understand it, to think about it, to spend some time reflecting on it. They shall regard the power that moves and shows itself in all things. So
it seems like he's saying that it's about moving beyond the superficial.
right. Yeah, and even beyond just the strictly physical. I think he's really saying, you know, this takes us into that newer, higher dimension.
I don't relate in this way.
Okay.
I think you know, it's almost like it's a angelic operation there. You know, it's not really a for us lower earthly plane people. I mean, it's like somebody who's really like the Buddha or the monks that spend their life praying all their life, and people under the sign of Virgo and that kind of thing.
I don't know. I think I'd have to disagree with that because, you know, as long as we're stuck with the superficial, that's more like living in fear. And if we can move beyond the living in fear and you know, what they're saying here is be pure in heart, or, you know, to really have a deep abiding purpose, then you're reaching for something more than just trying to deal with today's fears and, you know, the firefighting of life. I think that's really what they're trying to say. It doesn't have to mean that you go on, you know, a 30-day retreat where you don't eat and sit in a cave and pray.
Yeah, to me but see, Lori, that's what it sounds like to me, because there's no way I can attain that in this lifetime. Maybe next lifetime I'll be more attuned to that.
Okay, well, let's look at another phrase here, what Neil does.
Maybe I can attain the next phrase.
See if this is a little less deep. He says, aligned with the one are those whose lives radiate from a core of love. They shall see God everywhere.
Oh, I want that one.
Yeah, okay. That's your prerogative.
I love it. How beautiful.
Yeah. Aligned with the one are those whose lives radiate from a core of love. They shall see God everywhere. This is why I like Neil's stuff so well, because for each one of these phrases in both the Lord's Prayer and the Beatitudes, he gives us several different options, several different perspectives on how we think about that phrase, how we relate to that phrase. And so if Anne doesn't like the second one, that's fine. She loves the third one.
I do love that one.
So
that's a beautiful, beautiful statement.
And again, all of this, whether we're talking Lord's Prayer or Beatitudes, is ultimately about creating a version of these teachings that works for you, that radiates for you, with you. It doesn't have to be King James English, you know, in cut and dried terminology. So this is,
well, see it, and it moved from literal, which is they shall see God,
okay,
to they shall see God in everything.
uh-huh.
So in other words, it's attainable, but you are also stepping into a new reality of spiritual being for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. Oh, this is so exciting.
So, and basically, you know, the second one and the third one are basically saying the same thing. They're just saying it in very different words, from a very different perspective. And so you have to say, okay, one speaks to me, one doesn't speak to me. One of these I can read and say, huh, what? And the other one I can read and say, oh, wow, yeah, I get it. So it's, that's, again, this is what this is all about. It's looking at options, looking at possibilities.
I'm thinking that last one is begging to be put on a cross stitch thing and hang on the wall. My first non-sarcastic cross stitch.
My goodness, there you go. That would be like, you really have time to do that, Lori, in the midst of painting the house and everything else that's going on there for you. So let's look at another one. This goes back, starting, the second one started out, healthy are those. Healthy are those whose passion is electrified by deep abiding purpose. So then the fourth one starts off, healed are those. So in the second one, we're being healthy, and this one we're being healed. Healed are those who have the courage and the audacity. And I love that word, audacity. Healed are those who have the courage and audacity to feel abundant inside. They shall envision the furthest extent of life's wealth.
That's beautiful.
So, again, it's and this one, at least on just cursory first reading, it sounds like this is really talking about financial issues, prosperity, more than other things. To feel abundant inside, to envision the furthest extent of life's wealth. Now, as good metaphysicians, we know that this is not just about prosperity and material wealth, but again, I'm sure there are people that would read that and say, oh yeah, that's the one I want because it's going to give me prosperity. But I think it's interesting that courage and audacity are requirements to be healed.
Yeah, I think what they're trying to say there is healing doesn't come from being wishy-washy and saying, well, maybe you have to really go for it.
Yeah, it is. And, having that, he said to feel abundant inside, to feel the abundance of health and wholeness and wellness and prosperity and all of it. But yeah, it's not sitting there being wishy-washy. It's about, committing to do something. This is one of the pitfalls that people get caught up in with prayer. I just pray, I tell God what I want, and then I just sit there and wait for God to take care of it. Well, you may be sitting there a long time. So go do, ask, if you're going to go dig a hole, or if you want a hole in the ground, God, give me a hole in the ground here. And God will look at you and say, yeah, funny boy. But if you say, God, give me the strength, give me the wisdom, give me the power to go dig this hole where it needs to be dug, and I'll go do it. One of my favorite expressions, and I don't remember the whole thing, but God has no hands or feet but ours. And so if we think God needs a hole dug, we better go dig a hole, not just stand there leaning on a shoulder, waiting for the hand of God to come down out of the sky and dig a hole for us. And then the last one is another really deep, intense, kind of convoluted one. Anne, are you ready for it?
I'm still back at the digging the hole thing.
Okay.
Because I have to disagree a little bit, and that is, let's just say, I think in some cases you manifest that in some way. It's usually not the way you think, but the hole appears. Yeah. Somebody else comes and digs it. It's like you have put that out into the ether. It is in universal mind.
Right.
And the hole, like all of a sudden somebody down the street gets a sewer problem and they start digging, and they dig the hole, or that may not be in where you want it, but just the same, it happens. And it's not anything that you personally physically did.
No, but God didn't physically do it either. God provided a channel to make it happen. Yes,
true. Okay, I got you there.
Okay. It's not. Again, this is where people get hung up with the image of God as a physical humanoid type being. And if you can get past that, if you can get away from that, then you begin to understand that better.
So why do you think people have to say Mother, Father, God when they're praying? Because to me, God has no sex whatsoever. Why do we have to say that? That's attributing him with some kind of sex.
That is to get away from the concept of a purely masculine father. Okay.
Yeah, because I don't dig that at all. I just think that's so nitpicky and small-minded in so many ways. But I don't have a better word. I mean, I work on it all the time to figure out, what would I be happy with when I'm praying. And
what about divine creator?
Yeah,
I like that one.
Yeah,
but it doesn't flow to me, but
yeah,
it may tomorrow, because you just said it, But I would like to say something. I would like to address the creator without having to say Mother, Father, God. To me, that's just goofy.
Yeah.
But that's my deal. Right. It's not your deal, but it's my deal.
But figure out what works for you. Hey, yeah. You. If hey, you works, God doesn't care.
True.
And True. I use Father, Mother, God. Sometimes, depending on the situation, I use God, Goddess, all that is. I use creative spirit, source of the universe, divine source, universal consciousness, universal mind. Lots and lots of, of words.
I just would like to get to my place of being happy with how I'm addressing the spirit of all that is. And I've used it a couple times now, the source of all that is.
Okay.
And that works okay, but it's still clunky.
Yeah.
And I just would like it to rip off my tongue and, move ahead. That's all. You guys pray for me. I need help.
You don't want much there, do you?
No, I don't. But I don't want to say Father, Mother, God. I can tell you that. No. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. So the last one here, let's see. Then I'm going to grab another book, since this will be our own private version of the book club. So this is the last way he interprets, blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Resisting corruption are those whose natural reaction is sympathy and friendship. They shall be illuminated by a flash of lightning, the source of the soul's movement in all creatures. So, does that resonate with anybody? To me, that's one that really you need to think about and reflect on quite a bit, because that's pretty deep and pretty intense. But again, pure in heart, resisting temptation is a pretty accurate phrase there to connect this with. Whose natural reaction is sympathy and friendship. They shall be illuminated by a flash of lightning. And it's interesting, throughout Scripture, there are a number of times when God makes God's presence known through bolts of lightning or thunder or a whirlwind. So again, moving back into those more natural aspects of God, or hey you, if we're going to call it hey you. The source of the soul's movement in all creatures. Again, this idea, it's not just us, it's everything, everybody, the one, the allness, the see God everywhere, moves and shows itself in all things. So again, Richard Rohr, I don't know whether any of you are familiar with Richard Rohr. I thought you were, Carl. Franciscan priest, does daily meditations that are very powerful. But he wrote a book, it's probably been a couple of years ago now that the book came, called The Universal Christ, and saying that, Jesus Christ, that stuff is not Christian. It's much broader than that. It's much more universal than that. That we can experience it in so many different ways that take us beyond just the small, narrow, limited thinking box of Christian beliefs. And coming from a Franciscan monk, that sometimes is a little radical, but from my experience, Franciscans, monks, nuns, priests are some of the most liberal, open-minded.
So the first part of this last one, I can get that. I can see how if your natural reaction to any kind of conflict is sympathy and friendship, then that we'd resist corruption, because corruption would be, the tendency to be controlling or abusive.
Right.
I'm having a little bit of trouble figuring out what they mean by the last part. Illuminated by a flash of lightning. Or maybe you mean, maybe that's like symbolic of God is what you're saying. Illuminated by God, which is the source of the soul movement in all creatures. Okay.
That's the little aha moment that comes in our times of prayer or meditation, or while we're doing other things. It's like it can be just some passing comment, some passing thought that opens up all kinds of doorways, and then you go, oh wow, boom. I don't remember whether it was this group or the Wednesday night group. I told about, for years and years and years, I've said the phrase, I've heard the phrase, I've used the phrase, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. And, unfortunately, like a lot of the phrases we use repetitively, it just kind of zones us out. One day in a lecture, when I was in seminary, the instructor used that phrase, quoting the 23rd Psalm, and it was like a tornado blew the top off of my head. It was, oh, wow, I get it now. I was probably, I'm sure I was in my 30s or 40s when this happened. So, it's like, after hearing that phrase, after saying that phrase, all those years, finally, and I don't know what it was about hearing Jane say those words, whether it was her voice, her inflection, I don't know. But it was just, she said it, and bang, that flash of lightning.
So what changed from the actual word for word to your epiphany?
It was, I guess I would have to say it was an awakening of faith. If we use the metaphysical definition of faith as a deep inner knowing that that which we seek is already ours. And it was like, I'd heard the phrase, I knew the phrase intellectually, I knew the definition of faith intellectually, but in that moment, in that space, bam, it was like, it's not an intellectual knowing, it's a deep emotional, electrified by deep abiding purpose. That's what it was. And
I'm envious. I'm very envious.
Yeah. I've been doing this stuff forever.
And you're forever.
Yes, my forever. This
Yes.
lifetime forever.
Yes. Yeah.
35 years ordained and 10, 12 years beyond that of studying. And I have had maybe 3 experiences like that in my lifetime. And, one time was sitting in silent prayer in a prayer group with just a small group of people. And it, that wasn't the flash of lightning. It was just sitting in the silence, and all of a sudden just being aware that whatever it was I was experiencing was so much more than I could ever describe in words. And then there was this time hearing Jane just say those opening words of the 23rd Psalm. And then one other time was just sitting in meditation on my own and having gone into a really deep trance state. And so, you know.
Carol, have you had this experience?
I don't think to the degree, I doubt to the degree that he's describing.
Yeah.
I don't know that I could even give an example. They're more like much smaller scale. If I've been stewing over something and my brain says, you know what, and basically says, this is really dumb to be worrying about that. I mean, and then I had this moment of, oh, okay, you're right. And then it's gone, you know. It's smaller scale like that, but it sure feels nice.
Yeah. Yeah, we have that aha experience. Okay.
I think that what you have had this 3 or 4 times has got to be similar to what the disciples felt when the Holy Spirit came. I mean, that was a major, traumatic, but beautiful and transformative experience.
Right.
And it can happen to anybody. I know that, but I've never had quite that experience, but I do have smaller ones. I'm with Carol on it, small steps.
Right.
I'll tell you when I had a really aha moment, which is, you sometimes get that. And that was during your sermon about the miracle of changing the water to wine.
Okay.
That was an amazing epiphany for me. I can't tell. I wish I had the sermon and now so I could tell you more about it, but I remember how amazed I was. And amazing is such an overused word, but when it happens, boy, it's cool. Lori, have you had this happen?
I have, but I can't think of the specifics right now. I mean, I've had times where, I just thought of one. When I read, there was a book called Journey of Souls. It's kind of like Many Lives and Many Masters, but I read that and I had always felt cheated in life because you think this is the only one. And when I read Journey of Souls and realized this is one of many lives, and then later when I did a past life regression and learned why I'm here, it's like, oh, I mean, it took me weeks to process all of that and say, okay, I'm not being cheated. There's something for me to learn, and when I learn it, I'll stop feeling that way. Which is really to stop living in fear. And it's like, wow, I've got to restructure the way I see the world.
I like that line because that's absolutely the way I felt when I heard that. It really is. It really is a jumping off place kind of thing, a feeling, I think. You'll never be the same again. You are in a different space. And I just love hearing about it. It's like you were able to travel with Don for a minute and enjoy that feeling, just a little incremental feeling. And it's wonderful.
Okay. Any other comments on that beatitude before we go do something totally, and now for something completely different? because that's the way Don teaches. We're talking about trying to find new words for the allness, and one of the, imagine this, Don found a new interesting book. And it's called First Nations Version, an indigenous translation of the New Testament. It's written by a group of, I thought there was the group actually had a name, but now I can't. I can't come up with, but it's an amazing approach to scripture, to the New Testament, that really makes you stop and think more about I'm just going to share John 3:16, which is a verse that we all know and have heard misinterpreted hundreds of times. But they interpret it, the Great Spirit loves this world of human beings so deeply, he gave us his Son, the only Son who fully represents him. All who trust in him and his way will not come to a bad end, but will have the life of the world to come that never fades away, full of beauty and harmony. Creator did not send his Son to decide against the people of this world, but to set them free from the worthless ways of the world.
I have him up. I have him up on my screen. The main guy that
okay.
Terry Wildman.
Yeah.
Born and raised in Michigan, is Ojibwe and Yaqui.
Yes.
Ancestry.
Yes. Amazon loves you so much.
I know you should get an agent fee.
Yeah. I want to share one other, just couple, 3 verses from the opening of the Gospel of John. It says, long ago, in the time before all days, before the creation of all things, the one who is known as the Word was there face to face with the Great Spirit. This Word fully represents Creator and shows us who he is and what he is like. He has always been there from the beginning, for the Word and Creator are one and the same. Through the Word, all things came into being, and not one thing exists that he did not create. So again, I just read a review of this a couple, 3 weeks ago and fell in love with it. So another new book in Don's collection of interest. Okay.
So the Word is basically God setting an intention.
Yeah, basically. You know, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And all things came into being through the Word, which is, as you say, it's God's intention, God's power speaking the Word. The you know, it's the, we talked about the metaphysical trinity as being mind, idea, expression. So creator is like divine mind. Idea, which would be the Son, the metaphysical, the Jesus, the whatever, however you want to do that. But that's also the Word, that's the Logos, that's the energy of creation. And this is one of the things Matthew Fox talks about in Original Blessing, is that in John's Gospel, when it says the Word, it's not meaning just the spoken word. It's about the energy, the activity of creation happening through intention, through expressing out into the ethers what it is, the intention, the purpose, the whatever we want to call it. So, and then the manifestation is it finding expression in and through us, and being our power, our purpose is to demonstrate all that God is. And that's how we do it.
So in Genesis, when the Word was with God and it was on the surface, and God was across the surface of the deep, or whatever it says in the next line.
Right.
It really is talking about the plan, the eternal, infinite plan,
Mm-hmm.
and how each one of us has a part to play in that infinite plan.
Right. Right.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. Because if you read the Genesis 1 creation story, and God said, so you have God, the source, the divine mind, the perfect idea spoken out into existence. And then it comes into manifestation. And this is the same thing we do. This is the same intention of prayer work for us. We connect with divine mind. We get clear. The Wednesday night class has heard this already, but it's worth repeating. Ask, affirm, give thanks in advance are the 3 steps of prayer. Ask is to get clear about what it is we desire.
Yes, be specific.
Yeah. Then to affirm goes back to the idea of faith, the metaphysical definition of faith that I mentioned earlier. The deep inner knowing that that which I seek is already mine. So that trust, that faith, that knowing that it is there, and then to see it manifest in however it expresses in and through our lives. So it's
And then you say you're grateful again.
Right.
So it's just other, it's not a circle. It's, you know, I understand why people think the circle is the most perfect and pure form, but I had to grow past that.
Yeah.
And now I understand the spiral.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the circle is really just where the spiral is very tight and close together.
Mhm.
And so there's a connection between the two pieces.
Right.
And we continue to be in that big old spiral. I love this. I'm just enjoying the heck out of this tonight, guys.
Good.
I hope I'm not tearing you guys away from your thoughts. I'm sorry if I am. I apologize.
I think this is a pretty open, free-flowing group here. One of the things, and I'm not sure of the source, it may be from Matt Fox, but I wouldn't absolutely swear to that. But somebody that I've studied, read, worked with at some point over the years talks about the difference between climbing Jacob's ladder and dancing Sarah's circle or dancing Sarah's spiral. That's as an approach to our spirituality, our faith, our growth, that if you're climbing a ladder, it's very rigid. You just go up, 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 up. But if you're dancing Sarah's spiral or circle, it's constant movement. It's constant evolving. A bunch of years ago, I like that phrase. A bunch of years ago, I took a class because it would have been, I'd have to go back and figure out how many years ago it was, but it was when I was serving the church in Lima, Ohio. So it would have been probably late 80s. I took a class on Sufi dancing, on doing the whirling dervish dancing movement. And that is such a powerful experience, because in that movement and knowing how to do that movement so that you don't get really dizzy and fall on the seat of your pants, but really knowing how to just keep that movement going and doing the breathing that goes with it and entering into that altered state of consciousness. It's just an amazing, this was just like a weekend class that I took, but it was like, and you know, having had that experience, I don't really do it. I don't really practice it anymore. But it certainly was a very profound experience. All kinds of interesting opportunities out there for us. All right, well, gang, how are we doing? Okay, we need to keep moving along. We're halfway through our class and we got through one beatitude. We'll just keep on going. The next beatitude we know as, blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God. Now, we've talked about Neil and his approach enough that you ought to be able to, at least on some level, take this traditional English statement, blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called children of God, And think about some possible ways that Neil might interpret this. Maybe not using the exact words that Neil would use, but certainly using that kind of a consciousness about broadening the meaning of this. And so we're just gonna, I think we'll just do a couple of these. His first one, his most basic, blessed are those who plant peace in each season. They shall be named the children of God. And then we get to the third one, where he throws out another one of his little deep introspective. Aligned with the one are those who prepare the ground for all tranquil gatherings. They shall become fountains of livingness. Yeah. Aligned with the one are those who prepare the ground for all tranquil gatherings. They shall become fountains of livingness. Or I'll throw another one in here so we can be really confused. Integrated are those who joyfully knit themselves together within. They shall be stamped with the seal of cosmic identity. Yeah. So Anne's been blown away again. Our evening here. You know, so much deeper, so much more profound than just saying, blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called children of God.
Carol,
Ma'am.
God's name for us is our cosmic identity.
Okay. You like
Okay.
that one?
Yeah.
Remember that piece you were talking about and I was talking about?
Oh, that God
God has a name for
for
each
each
of
of
us.
us. Yeah.
That's our cosmic identity.
Uh-huh.
That's what I'm thinking anyway.
Okay.
I
Makes
like
I'm
that.
sorry. I'm just, we had a sidebar conversation about one of our conversations in class.
okay. Oh, very good. So again, you know, we can do a pretty basic, simple, blessed are those who plant peace each season. I mean, that's because so much, you know, the teachings of Jesus, so much revolve around nature and gardening and planting the seeds and harvesting the crops. That's the cycle of our lives as well as the cycle of the world or the universe. And then we take this, you know, he talks about the idea, aligned with the one, connected with the one, with the divine, with God, with, you know, whatever, pick a word, any word. Are those who prepare the ground for all tranquil gatherings. As we go through life, as we lay out our daily activities, our daily programs, and our busyness, How often are we preparing the ground for all tranquil gatherings? It's very difficult. It's, you know, it's that necessity for really being focused, for being so centered on the divine, on the spiritual, that is our focus on everything we do. That we are preparing the ground for all tranquil gatherings. And just to keep reminding ourselves that that is what it's all about. That's why we're here. This is what we're supposed to be doing. So.
May those who need us find us.
Yep.
And may those we need find us.
Find
too.
us as well. Yeah.
That's tranquil.
Yeah. Just knowing.
You know, I'm having this really attack of astrological signs. This is a Pisces.
Okay.
I just like everyone you read, I'm going, that's this, that's that. It's very interesting to me that we are talking about groups of people. Some I relate to and some I don't, but I'm just saying to myself, why don't I relate? And it's usually because my ego is in the way.
Well, I think too, and that's true, that, you know, this is what gets us into trouble. You know, what does ego stand for? Have you heard this one before?
Tell me again, I need help.
EGO, edging God out.
Yeah.
So just to get to that point where, you know, is if evil is something that creates a barrier, a curtain, a border between us and God, the good, then ego is in some ways the exact same thing. It's what we do, what we create to push God out. And I think too, if you go back to the 23rd Psalm, to that first verse, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. If we truly tune into that, if we truly live that, certainly that is this sense of tranquility. So it, you know, here we are back on the spirals again, while pulling this all together, reconnecting all of this.
The ego thing is a problem for me, as it is for a lot of people, but it is definitely a problem for me. And it's because of protection I've had to put up when I was a kid. And now I don't need it, but it's still there. You know what, I really would like to grow past it. And I do a pretty fair job, except for when in moments of stress or problematic situations, there it is. And sometimes it works out, but a lot of times I wish I'd just been able to put it aside. I'm not used to being tranquil. I know that.
Okay. That is.
Carol is tranquil, by golly.
sometimes.
When
Sometimes-
you're healing, you're tranquil. I feel
But that's
like that.
invoking spirit and spirit energies.
yeah.
That's what leads me to be tranquil when I Reiki myself or others, because it still comes through me. So when I meditate, prayer and meditation always includes self Reiki for me to some extent. I just started doing those three things together.
Yeah.
I guess one kind of exercise I came up with a few years ago to kind of help me with that is you just, imagine what it would be like if you had $1 million in a bank account that was all yours and it's invested someplace, so it's gaining interest, and you can really buy anything you want anytime you want to. And just imagine what that would feel like. And then you can say, well, I mean, it doesn't get rid of all your problems, but it sure helps out with a lot of them. And, thinking, well, what would that feel like? And it's a secret bank account that only you know about. So nobody expects you to do anything with it. And so you can just like reach into that little bank account pocket or that app on your phone. And as long as you don't do anything crazy, and then you can say, well, okay, not that money is everything, but if you could just see what that feels like, and then you realize, well, yeah, maybe this thing I worry about isn't quite so important.
And again, where does that take us? Back to the 23rd Psalm. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. Well, I thought I could find something here for Anne, but okay. Catherine Ponder, I don't know, I think most of you may be familiar with Catherine's work, is famous for her denials and affirmations. Are we ready to move on?
We are, if you are.
It's full steam ahead, as they say. Blessed are they which are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. So again, when I read this, the English version here, my first thought is let's do some of the metaphysical interpretation here. Righteousness. Remember, we've said righteousness means the right useness of whatever. For theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Kingdom means reign, guidance, counsel, wisdom. Heaven means the realm of divine ideas. So they're saying, in essence here, blessed are we, enriched are we, nourished are we, when people don't like what we're doing because we are practicing right useness of the wisdom, the guidance, the counsel of the realm of divine ideas. So that's a strictly metaphysical interpretation. So then we can go and look at what Neil has to say. His first basic interpretation is blessings to those. Now, we've moved away from blessed are or healthy are to blessings to. Again, this implies that if we want to receive blessings, we have an obligation, a commitment we have to make here. Blessings to those who are dislocated for the cause of justice. Their new home is in the providence of the universe. Again, when we get abused, mistreated, put down because of our efforts to make justice happen, to bring tranquility into existence. When we endure this persecution, when we endure being dislocated from ourselves because of this, then our new home is in the universe. It's not a physical thing. It's not a material thing. It's a spiritual thing. So that's one way of looking at that. Another way he approaches this, aligned with the one are those who draw shame for their pursuit of natural stability. Theirs is the ruling principle of the cosmos.
Wow.
Again, yeah. When we get put down, when we get belittled for what we're trying to do, the right useness of who and what we are, then we end up in a better place. We gain wisdom, guidance, counsel from this. It connects us with the divine.
This was a tough one. I mean, to put into practice.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Because I mean, if you're the one standing up for what's right and you're the only person in a large group of people standing up for what's right, you get crushed.
Yeah. But your reward is gonna be there. Maybe not the way we want or think or whatever, but yeah, it's the last one he uses here I really like too. He says, tuned to the source, and this is a phrase he uses fairly often, tuned to the source are those persecuted for trying to right society's balance. To them belongs the coming king and queendom. Thoughts, questions, comments?
That's rather bizarre. The coming king and queendom?
Yeah. Again, this is an approach to inclusive language referring to the divine. Tuned to the source are those persecuted for trying to right society's balance. Remember, the kingdom or queendom is reign, rule, guidance, counsel, all those things we need to encourage and empower ourselves.
Well, one of the first things that comes to mind with that is that this is really a tough one. Is like, you know, imagine that that January 6th riot, the police officers who were there were trying to make things right. And I mean, the tough one is, you know, looking at the police officer who was killed for it, or one of them, and was it worth it? I mean, did they make a difference? you wonder, you know, or I think there were 2 other police officers who were there and lived through it and committed suicide afterwards. I think I read that. And I mean, just the terror of all of that must have been just unimaginable.
Yeah. And so
That's a tough one.
it is. It is very tough.
To me, it represents the Supreme Court too, if we're going to go political on that. And that is that every decision is made according to how they perceive right and wrong and the law. And it affects not only our country, but the world, what their decisions make. And they have to sleep with themselves at night.
Yeah.
What do they dream about?
Probably they dream about their belief that they are right. So anyway, we're going to keep moving here. We'll move away from the political stuff, although it's very easy for me to get deeply into the political stuff. But I try real hard not to do that. Okay, so moving right along here. Blessed are ye when men shall revile you and persecute you, and shall say all manner of evil against you falsely for my sake. Right back into the politics. His first interpretation here just says, blessings when you are conspired against, scandaled, and accused falsely of corruption for my sake. My sake being justice and social order and tranquility and all these nice things we've been talking about this evening that we'd like to see manifest in the world, but yet there seem to be all kinds of forces working against us to keep that from happening. Part of this to me is about this idea that in our spiritual growth, in our attempts to grow and evolve spiritually, that there is always going to be a price to pay for trying to do the right thing, to try and demonstrate righteousness, righteousness. But that ultimately, even when all this happens to us, we're still going to grow, we're still going to mature, we're still going to evolve, but this is part of the price that we may have to pay to accomplish these goals, these objectives for ourselves.
And this is another tough one because I've had a lot of times in my life when people have made up things about me and spread stories and convinced a bunch of people that I did stuff that never happened, and I was just like, where is the value in that?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
been just terrorizing, really. But then as I was thinking about that, I just heard the words, look for the lesson.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so there's a lesson in it, and that's what I had to go through to learn what I needed to learn.
Yeah.
When
Yeah.
does it
It's, you know, it's part of that contract we made before we incarnated, and then we so nicely forgot it by the time we got fully incarnated, and now we're learning it all over again. So we're there we go. Okay.
Like I tell my kids, you know, whatever you came here to learn, it's tough right now, but you learn it now, you're going to do it again next time.
Yeah.
And it might not be as easy.
Yeah, definitely. And even in this one lifetime, you know, if once we think we've learned a lesson, Louise Hay used to say, "I'll come back one more time to see if we really have." And you know, do we meet it with tranquility and peace, or do we freak out and the universe says, "Oh, well, I guess maybe you hadn't quite learned that as much as you thought you had." At which point you say, "Okay, you got me there. Let's try it again." And then we get to the very last phrase. We've been through all these trials and tribulations and the hardships and the challenges. And what does this start off by saying? Rejoice and be exceedingly glad, for great is your reward in heaven. For so persecuted they the prophets before you. It ain't nothing new. And, you know, it can be a real challenge. Again, seeing the good in the midst of all the craziness. So, okay. So we talked about ego a little bit ago. And the second interpretation he puts on this phrase is so very appropriate. Do everything extreme, including letting your ego disappear. For this is the secret of claiming your expanded home in the universe. Do everything extreme, including letting your ego disappear. Okay. Not easy. The first way he interprets this, he says, then feel at the peak of everything and be extremely moved for your natural abundance already in the cosmos has multiplied all around you from the blows of from the blows on your heart. Do everything, experience the peak, experience the very best. Be extremely moved, be activated. This is in one of the Beatitudes, he uses the term activated. Be activated in the midst of all of this, because your abundance, your good, your power is already here. It's already around you. It's multiplying around you. And the more blows you get to your heart, to the love, to the compassion, the more you're going to experience your good. Yeah. Rejoice and be exceedingly glad. Keep seeing the good. Keep seeing the positive in the midst of all the chaos.
I think of the crucifixion with this one.
Mhm.
The way Jesus just, he's being beaten and all this stuff and people yelling at him and he just kind of stands there and because I mean, if you think about it, there wasn't anything he could have said that would change it.
Right.
Then he gets a religion named after him and
Yeah. Yeah. That's
2,000 years later, we still know about it.
mhm. Um, you know, and again, we talked about this in one of the classes, and I don't remember whether it was in the Lord's Prayer portion of this class or if it was in the Wednesday group, where we talked about the fact that some theologians say that if Jesus had not been able to say, Father, forgive them, he would never have experienced the resurrection. So he had to be able to let go, to bless them, to forgive them for all of this stuff, including crucifying him. And that's what took him up to the next level. And ultimately, that's what takes us up to the next level, as we are able to forgive. Remember, we said to forgive is to give up the lesser for the greater. Give up the hatred and the anger and release it so you can experience the peace and the tranquility and the love and all the good stuff. But again, you have to do one before you get the other. So that's always the tricky part in what Jesus said, in what we experience, in all of it is, it all comes down to this balance of, if you do this, then that will happen. But if you don't do this, you're not going to have this happen. So we, in the Lord's Prayer, we talked about the idea that the phrase, forgive us our debts or trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. And there are some Bible scholars who say that a better translation in terms of the tense of this is, forgive us our debts as we also have forgiven our debtors, our trespasses. We have to be willing to do part A to get to part B. And so it's a challenge. It's always,
But what you're saying here is that when people are, I mean, like in my life, again and again and again, this kind of thing keeps happening from all different angles. It's, I'm getting the opportunity to learn complete forgiveness so I can grow and ascend to the next level.
Yeah.
I'll keep telling myself that.
Right. For forgiveness, release, letting it go. It's hard. It is. And again, You know, sometimes we have to experience it many times, and sometimes many, many times before we finally get to that point. You know, I have experiences in my life where someone has done me wrong, and you know, I try to let it go. I try to forgive. And there are still days when I think of that person and I just want to smack them silly. So it's, why, hello. Come on, come on. Say hi. This is Athena.
Oh,
This is Athena.
hi.
You have a different cat or dog every time.
Yes. Well, you know, we have 5 cats and 6 dogs in this house. So they just kind of come and go as they please.
That is a beautiful kitty.
Yeah, that's,
She
I'm
looks like a
surprised she
goddess.
let me hold her for even more than 2 seconds because she's really not one to be held. But now she's sitting on the floor down here giving me dirty looks.
Just like Oreo last time.
Yes, yeah, Oreo, I don't know what, Midnight is asleep under the computer table over here. Oreo sleeps on the stairs a lot, so she may be over on the stairs.
Not a wise choice. You want to get stepped on.
Well,
Oh.
she when I go downstairs, she sees me headed towards the stairs and she tends to run. So I think maybe she's learned a lesson somewhere there. All right, gang. Closing questions, comments, thoughts, issues. Thank you all. Blessings, much love.